Howdy, and welcome to the White Hat Law Show with Warren Nord, where we cover a mix of current events, politics, and the law. Take it away, Warren.
Welcome back to White Hat Law. My name is Warren Nord, and we're in downtown Fort Worth talking about Republican politics today. I've got with me four young people. As you may see from time to time on the interwebs, as they say, Ben Shapiro or somebody or Waters will interview a bunch of young people, and they'll sound like blithering idiots. And I say, I know a bunch of young people, and they don't sound like that. And so I wanted to have them up here and have them talk about who they are and why they're voting the way that they are today. So today with me, we have Sarah White. Sarah is a recent grad of ORU, worked on several Republican conservative campaigns, and is currently working with Connie Burton's campaign. Welcome, Sarah. We also have Noah Norrid. Who's this guy? He's a recent business graduate of Providence Christian, Pasadena, accumulating experience in construction, doing some internship work there, and also a volunteer for Connie Burton, as well as Ron Wright, right? Yes, okay. And then we have Mackenzie Taylor. Mackenzie is very passionate. She's worked on with Rick Green and Kyle Bierman, and now working again with Connie Burton. You might be able to tell that we do a lot of work with Connie Burton around here. And then lastly, we have Solomon Norrid. Solomon's a recent graduate of Covenant Christian, working as a paralegal as he finds a home in the economics with his economics degree, volunteering for Ron Wright and Connie Burton. Full disclosure, the two gentlemen here are both sons of mine. So I kind of pulled them in here just to see what they think, and that's all good. So the first question we have is, why are you all voting Republican, and why are you Republican generally? And we'll start with the ladies. So, Sarah?
Yeah.
Why are you a Republican?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Republican because I've seen property taxes in my own family's home that have continued to skyrocket, and it's my mom's a single mom, and so it's continued to hurt her. So that's something that I just saw in a personal area, as well as I care about people, but that doesn't mean that the government is the solution to the problem. That they should step into their specific homes and their specific how much money they make. That's not always the government's role to continue to provide for those people, and so. After getting a pretty liberal degree, I really saw that, hey, that's wonderful and that's great, but that's not the way to help people as the government. And so I'm a small, limited government kind of girl. I want to make sure, though, that it's still robust and it's good and it's still helping people and doing what its role is to do. So those are kind of some of the key things that make me a Republican.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, and I'd say smaller government is better government. I think at the end of the day...
An anarchist.
Exactly. No, not even in the slightest. I think government has its proper role, its constitutional role. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think myself and my family, my friends, and people who live and pay their taxes have a better idea of where they should be spending their money than the government does. I'm a very pro-life individual from conception till natural death, and there's only one party that stands on that principle as a whole, so that is a bedrock issue for me as well.
Okay, thank you. Noah?
So I'm a Republican because in Los Angeles, California, there is very high restriction on what you can have as a small business there. There's a lot of taxes, a lot of red tape, and a lot of regulation because there's no space there.
They're just protecting you and all the small babies from the anarchy and chaos.
I want to eventually be, my own business owner, and I need that low taxes so I can have that big window to have my own small business myself.
Ah, okay.
I'm also pro-life, and I like my guns.
You're pro-life and likes guns. Saul, do you like pro-life and like guns?
I am pro-life, and I think the Second Amendment is very important. A lot of people don't realize or remember the fact that we have the Second Amendment to have guns to protect us from the government if it ever turns on us. It's not just for self-defense from randoms. But I would also say, as they've all repeated, smaller government is better, lower taxes is better for economic growth, and less regulation for more economic growth is the best solution for the poor, as well as creating wealth in general.
Now, how does smaller, just to stop you there, how does lower amounts of regulation help the poor?
Well, what if, you look at the permits, when people trying to sell water bottles, or like the young African-American kid who was selling water bottles, and the white woman called permits on him. Do we really need that regulation for a boy who's just trying to make a couple money, or anything else like that?
Okay. Well, those are all fine answers. I approve all of you. You all vote Republican with us. That's good. Now is there, of course, every season has its own flavor of discussions and campaigns. So what is driving, Mackenzie, what's driving you this campaign cycle?
I think, particularly in Texas, we're seeing a lot of action from the left, more so than we've ever seen before. The number of Democrats running in down ballot races has increased dramatically. I think in Tarrant County last cycle, you count on one hand the amount of down ballot races had Democratic challengers, and this time, it's hard to find somebody who does not have a challenger, and that's step one, right? Even if a lot of these guys don't win their races, that's the very beginning of the end. So I think for me this cycle, from Texas as a state and just the direction it's going, even in this, like I work for Senator Connie Burton in the Senate, if we lose this race, then we lose our supermajority and the ability to pass conservative legislation with the snap of a finger, right? And I think that will greatly impact what we're able to accomplish as a state.
Outstanding. Noah, what's any particular race that's driving you this season?
So I would say the Beto and Cruz race is driving me. I would say for the reason that somebody has to communicate some sense with Trump. Trump is for the Republicans. For the Republicans at least, he's doing a good job. We need somebody that's able to communicate to him. Beto, he goes in there. Trump may not listen to him. Whereas Cruz,
you think?
Yeah. But with Cruz, you have established a table. You have somebody there who's experienced. You have a line of communication. For us to fortify him and to support him going in, he would be more able to listen to his supporters, and for easier access to convince Trump to do the right decisions, especially when it comes to tariffs.
Yeah, we talk a lot about Ted, and we all love Ted, but he's not the most. He's not the most fun to talk to or to listen to, and I always have to point out to people, Ronald Reagan is our saint, right? He's our hero. Ronald Reagan. You have to evoke Ronald Reagan whenever you have a speech or anything. But Ronald Reagan spent about 10 years of his life, going up and down the West Coast, learning how to talk to people, and so he was really good at talking to ordinary people and really getting points across. Ted is an appellate attorney. He has spent the last 15, 20 years of his life talking to the most erudite people on the planet, the Supreme Court and appeals court judges, where everything you say is scripted. It has to be that way. You don't want any off-the-cuff remarks. You don't want any fast jabs. That's just not the way. So it's really hard for him to change gears. You'd like to think he could just downsize, but it doesn't work that way. So, but yeah, actual performance is nice. So yeah. Sarah, what do you say? What's driving you this season?
Yeah, I would also say the Cruz and Beto race. I really think it's going to be a landmark race for what we're going to look at in years to come, when one day I'm going to be having children and telling them about it. And I think it's important that we continue to hold our ground to say, no, this is who Texas is, this is who America is, and we believe in pro-life, we believe in small government, those things that they stand for, we believe in those things. And I think if there is any chance that Beto can win this race, I think I think it will continue to push that ground, and once you gain an inch, then you'll take a mile, right? And so They will continue to run with that, and I would just be so afraid of to where America could go if that happens. And so,
right. Well, it's. I think that Beto got a lot of play early on. He's willing to drop F-bombs from the podium while he's speaking, and he's kind of that JFK. How cool. And that comes out every time you have a young Democrat that speaks well, that's friendly. It's another JFK. And everybody goes, it's JFK. Right. Yeah, not really. So what do you think?
Well, I do think the Ted Cruz and Beto is very important. I mean, you feel like you want to go get a drink with Beto, but do I really want this man putting legislation and making decisions for his constituents? Even in El Paso, there's on record of most of his constituents don't even like him. Or I do say Ron Wright is a very important race coming up. I mean, he has been active in this community in Texas and Fort Worth just for years, and he's been a tax assessor. Really looking into property taxes and lowering them, and then the unfairness of that. And he's going to be a voice in Congress for us for getting lower property taxes.
It's a good point. He'll be one of the few people in Congress that have actually done anything recently and visited with real people about property taxes. It's one of my favorite things about Ron is he was on the Arlington City Council 1,000 years ago. Maybe not that long, but some time ago. And he was one of the first people in my adult life to say, you know, we need to actually lower the tax rate. And if a legislative body keeps the tax rate the same and says, oh, look, we kept the tax rate the same, but your valuations go up and your taxes go up, the check you write still goes up. So yeah, you raise taxes. Well, that was a lot of stuff really fast. We're going to take a break real quick, and then we'll be back and hit more.
Hang on, y'all. More with Warren when we get back. Welcome back, folks. You're listening to the White Hat Law Show with Warren Norris. Take it away, Warren.
Welcome back. Well, we covered a lot of stuff last segment, so this time we're going to shift gears a little bit to the issue of the day, the Kavanaugh hearings, which are going on. Actually, the discussion is going on right now. Hearings finished up last week. What do y'all think about the Kavanaugh hearings, and who is this guy Kavanaugh? Do you care about this Kavanaugh stuff?
I think at a certain point, most folks are getting very tired, right? I think we're all kind of worn out from this whole thing. But for me, the whole idea that somebody could be, put up for this position and be guilty until they're proven innocent, that to me is a scary place to be. So regardless of the man and whether or not what happened actually, what he's accused of actually did happen, for me the scariest thing is this man is literally being treated as if he's guilty prior to being proven anything else.
Yeah, we probably ought to break it because people don't know when they're watching this where we are in the system. The Senate has voted to end debate, and Brett Kavanaugh will be considered and probably a vote tomorrow. I think it is, and he's likely to succeed unless something happens. So we don't know what's going to happen. This will be long. That'll be long over before we get this aired. But that's where we are today, and so. I found that it's strange to me that people will say, well, I've accused you of something really horrible, therefore you're auto disqualified.
Exactly.
Yes. That seems wrong.
For practices that are 36 years old. I mean, if, there was a meme that I saw on the internet a couple days ago. Let's put the entire Senate through a fraternity behavior background check, and nobody will be left standing. I mean, nobody in this room will be left standing.
Right. What's he accused of? He was, I don't make light of it, but okay, 15-year-old going to a party with a 17-year-old boy, and they're all drinking, and the 17-year-old boy makes a move on her. This is
these days.
This is not an unusual situation.
Could be easily twisted into a rape case. I'll tell you that as of course I'm an attorney, right? And so people contact me about threats that they received. And there was a young man who called me and said that he had a relationship that was short with a young lady, and then they didn't talk for a while, and she called him back, and he showed me texts. They were going back and forth, which were, let's just say, very flirtatious. And then the conversation went a different direction, and she said, well, I think I may accuse you of rape. And so suddenly, gentlemen, there's a target, right? Now, that doesn't mean that we should ignore people who say something bad has happened to me. But, really, it'd be the idea that you're going to come back and be 36 years from now and make really a pretty outlandish tale. It can't be verified. And it'd be different, it's not Bill Cosby, who had dozens. It's not Harvey Weinstein, which was an open secret. There's no pattern at all here. So I thought it was scary. But I did want to hear what you guys had to say. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, I also think it's very unfair how the whole thing's been handled. I mean, we've had a lot of time for this to be approached, and the Democrats held upon that letter. They didn't say anything. In fact, it said that she didn't want the letter. Dr. Ford didn't want the letter to be public, and that happened anyway. And they had plenty of time for this to be handled. And that's not what they wanted. And instead, they wanted for time to go on, for us to get closer to this nomination. And when we get closer and closer to this, it gets harder for us to really defend. I mean, like the mob rule is just going crazy. Mm-hmm. And the other day, there's tweets on, go find all these senators and follow them around for the rest of their lives. Right. And I saw that today on Twitter. Is that fair? Is that what we're doing here? Is this how we're running?
Is that civil discourse?
No, really? Absolutely not.
Right. So it's You just said something that was interesting to me. It was Feinstein, Senator Feinstein. If anybody has abused Dr. Ford, it's Feinstein. She gets a letter from somebody who says this is what we want to do. You hold on to it for a couple of months. You out the person. You don't protect her identity, and you don't follow up on what happened. And then when it becomes convenient to stall the whole thing, then you out her and force her to come forward. You know, it's just a pretty much horrible deal. Yeah. So, well, I just thought I'd run that by. And then, of course, you guys deal with this more than most people, or it's more recent in your past. Even when I was going to college 1,000 years ago, you know, the campuses were generally liberal, run by even in conservative campuses. You have a more liberal viewpoint on matters. What was y'all's experience?
Yeah, so I went to a pretty conservative university, but I was one of those ones who I went into social work and studied that, and so for me it was
wow.
I grew up very conservative. I mean, I said all the things that conservatives said. I didn't know what any of it meant.
Right.
I just knew, yeah, this is what we want. So I went off to college, and it was very important for me though to expand my horizons. So I never really would say that I was a liberal, but I just started to learn more, and I was like, oh, there's so much more we could know. And I was probably one of those people who would sit down at the dinner table and nobody else cared, and I was like, so what do you think about the presidential election? Let's talk about it. And all my friends were going for President Trump at the time, and I was like, I don't know, let's talk about it. And just I would try to expand their horizon. So I was kind of part of those people who wanted to, let's just learn more. I think it was just important as a young person. I think that's why young people are sometimes very liberal. It's because we just want to know more. I just want to be, I want to be fully who I was. I didn't want to just take my mom's point of view anymore and copy and paste it, but instead I wanted to know for myself what I believed. And so then I would in turn just try to strike up conversations with people to just help expand their horizon just a little. Of course, then I ended up landing back probably more conservative than I ever was to begin with. But I think
the system worked.
Right. Good job, Republicans. But
no, it wasn't Republicans. It was just good thinking on your part.
Right.
You know, investigating facts.
Right. I think it was important though to just to kind of learn what the other side thinks, and then I kind of tasted it. I was like, oh, you guys are really crazy. I'm going. No, yeah, I'm back over here. So.
Noah, how about you?
So for those watching, I went to Providence Christian College, which is in Pasadena, California. Go Sea Beggars. When the election happened, we were all kind of, I had my small, 2 or 3 friends, right-leaning libertarians, kind of sitting in the corner with our own Google election watcher. And then the rest of the people in the crowd were all Hillary Clinton supporters. But at the time, Trump...
At a conservative Christian school.
Conservative Christian school as far as the faculty and administration, the actual students. There's good diversity amongst the students.
Okay.
The worst curse word that you could say in California was Trump. So nobody spoke of who they voted for. When people said, hey, who are you voting for? The 2 people voting for Trump didn't say anything, and they didn't want to say anything. And so after the election happened, everybody was shocked. There were a good chunk of people that stepped back and said, okay, how did he win? And they started thinking. And that's when it was actually pretty crazy, the critical thinking part of their brain woke up, which is what they learned at Providence Christian College. The critical thinking part woke and just said, okay, so let's look at the left and let's look at the right. Which one is which one is actually fair? Which one is actually accepting of, everybody? And that's eventually, what brought me on the path of okay, well, I need to take a side now. And that's when I got into the Republican Party. That's when I got into the Libertarian Party and expanded my horizons.
So are you more of a Libertarian or are you more of a Republican?
When it comes to government, I'm more Libertarian. When it comes to I would say I'm a Republican with the hopes of small government, which is the Libertarian side of me. Don't tell me what to do. Don't dictate anything to me. But I understand we need a military.
Okay, so you're a strong military Libertarian. It's pretty normal, Saul?
Well, I went to Covenant Christian College, another Christian college, and that was in Georgia. But I also went to UTA for a year and a half, and I transferred to Covenant. And UTA is one of the most diverse colleges in the world, and it's a very interesting place. But a lot of the times you see in universities identity politics being pushed.
Now, what is identity politics to you?
That is basically taking an individual and saying, guess what? You belong to this group, and I'm only going to identify you as a member of this group, and I'm going to make all of my judgments off of that group. It's not very good for logic or just civil behavior, as well as whenever you see it in universities. Does it really does it bring people together, or are we just making the divide bigger? And for my point in UTA, that was a little bit of the case, but just in general, that's what you're seeing a lot more in universities.
Cool. Mackenzie?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Seattle, Washington, of all places. So you can imagine, the difference of opinion of folks up there compared to Texas.
Right.
My first 2 years of college, I went to a small liberal arts school where I was a history major, so a lot of the history classes I was taking were certainly different than what I'd learned in my, high school and junior high education. But it was my first day of my Western civilization history class on campus. I went in and I was, just a young, I was actually in high school at the time, and I walked in and I had my Bible in one hand and my, my backpack in the other, and I unassumingly walked in thinking, this will be really good. I love history. This is going to be awesome. And I walk in, and my professor comes in wearing a shirt with a bunch of expletives on it, and then white people. That's literally what his T-shirt said. And I'm sitting there, again, like this Christian homeschool girl, like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? And throughout the course of the class, we were able to have some good discussion, but there was certainly sweetie, by the end of this, we'll have you on our side. And I'm just sitting there like, I don't even know what to do with this, right? Because there's, no sort of any semblance of acceptance for anybody that is leaning even right.
Right, it's not even a respectable position.
Right, it's like, we'll educate you, right? And I'm like, oh my, wow, I thought we'd be able to discuss this, civilly, but so no, my first 2 years of school were very much, let's just say eye-opening, to say the least. But it worked out well in the end, and I was able to have some good conversations. And if you speak up in class, then other folks are like, hey, me too, right? There's a few other people raising their hand, even if it's like 2 or 3.
It's amazing what happens if once you have somebody to say, no, I don't think that's right.
Right. It's like, wait, hold on a second. Yeah, it's not quite how it works.
Yeah, I kind of believe that person right too.
Yes.
So but somebody has to be brave enough to speak up,
yeah,
or just get squelched completely.
Right.
Well, even when you have speakers that come to some of these schools that are trying to educate or have discussions, there's massive protests and things get shut down. Yeah. Even yesterday, Ben Shapiro's, thousands of protesters, or hundreds, or many.
Tens and tens.
Millions.
But this is something that, are we trying to encourage discussion in universities or not? If you're going to stand outside and chant things and just not let people in, that's not helping, I don't think, your case, because you're kind of just shutting down. You're silencing my opinion, which is one of the left's biggest thing. So you can't suppress my opinion, but yet you're going around and you're not allowing people to have discourse just because maybe it hurts your feelings or you just disagree with them.
There used to be this idea in the classical liberal setting that I disagree with what you say, but I defend to the death your right to say it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we all kind of grew up with when I was a kid. But it's turned into the what you say hurts my feelings, therefore you shouldn't be allowed to say it because it's a microaggression. Or
it's hate speech.
Or hate speech, and which of course is absurd. And so we're developing a group of people that cannot live and function in the real world. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to find a spouse that agrees with you completely, 100%. Well, we don't need a spouse. We have this, and so it goes on with this. You have to live in the real world, and you have to learn. You're going to work with people and cooperate with them to accomplish great things. They're not going to be exactly like you, so you can't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we can only talk about this job." No, this is real world. You have to live in the real world. Yeah. We're going to take one more break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about social media and celebrities because if I don't know what to do if Scarlett Johansson doesn't tell me, or Hulk, what's his name?
Mark Ruffalo.
Right? Ruffalo, yeah. If the Hulk tells me smash, then we got to do that. So we'll be right back.
Hang on, y'all. More with Warren when we get back. Welcome back, folks. You're listening to the White Hat Law Show with Warren Norrid. Take it away, Warren.
Welcome back. This is our last segment. We're talking to, I wouldn't say the youth. Is that insulting? Is it okay to call you the youth?
I'm triggered.
You call me the youth if you want.
Call me your kid. Call me your kid.
There you go. Are you guys millennials? What are you? What are you supposed to be?
Cutoffs for 96, wasn't it? For
Generation
millennial
Y.
or something.
I don't know. Generation Y?
I'm confused by it.
Whatever gets the headline.
Yeah, whatever makes you come and listen to us
Right.
is what we are. So we're going to talk about social media. How important is social media in today's politics and your thinking about such things?
For some people, it is entirely that social media and what they get off of it is entirely makes up their opinion.
Really? So you think now? Is there a difference between Twitter and Facebook and anything else?
Twitter's more live, and I mean Instagram. That's pictures. Nobody goes in there for politics. But Twitter, you can be surprised. What do you see all over Instagram? Tweets. What do you see all over Imgur, Reddit? Tweets. President Trump doesn't use Instagram for his propaganda.
Propaganda? Trump does propaganda? I'm appalled. Yes, it's all propaganda. It's okay.
Yeah.
Kenzie?
Gosh, I think Twitter is by far the most political of them. I mean, Facebook perhaps, but as far as actual news goes, I think a lot of us substitute Twitter for our news because every outlet.
I think this is a
filters
young
into
person
Twitter.
thing because we do
That's
Facebook,
true.
right?
Yeah, I think that's very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's partially because Twitter is more fast-paced and
Fast-paced.
live, and you wait 2 minutes and it's 15 new tweets at the top of your news. You're like, what are they saying?
Every 2 minutes, Brett Kavanaugh is reported on by something else on the live feed of Twitter.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, though, Twitter it is a battlefield of opinions, and people like to just say things for clout, as they say on it. But this is changing our conversation. I like Facebook more because you can actually type out a solid
actual discourse.
Yeah, you can have an essay on Facebook. But with Twitter, I have 300 characters to get an opinion and maybe insult you. It's just that's what Twitter's for.
I need more
I
space
am
to insult you because my insults are very long-winded.
Well,
So-
it's still teaching the younger kids to not have dialogue. And we're going to have reply, very short. No one's going to you're not going
Right.
to change someone's opinion unless you actually give a link and you're a limited amount of characters to a study, perhaps, but that doesn't happen.
I was going to spam Ben Shapiro
Yeah,
and Jordan
I do
Peterson.
that sometimes,
Yeah.
but it is just and when you even have Twitter coming out and talking about how they have this left-wing bias, and you just kind of think, if you see all these promotions, you see these ads, like how much can one affect these things, or is this actually what the market, or is this actually trending, or is this just being put in front of me so because they know exactly what my phone's been doing for the last 24 hours, and they can just change my mind / mess with my subconscious by putting different things up
They're
there.
probably speaking into your subconscious at night.
They
Be careful what you agree to.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, you look like you're a real Reddit girl. So-
Reddit. Yeah, not at all, actually. I think I've looked at it one time.
Reddit is
but
It is
Reddit.
anarchy.
It's just, it can go all sorts of ways, so I just don't mess. I don't go in that rabbit trail because I'll never leave.
Yeah.
But something I've seen recently, one of my friends that I graduated college with, she just did a poll, just out of all of our friends, all of her followers, who are people our age, maybe a little older, a little younger, just saying, hey, where do you get your news from? The option was podcasts, reading the actual news online, or Facebook, Twitter. And by majority, it was Facebook, Twitter. For me, I honestly podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So as I'm driving, then I can get my news in. So where I'm getting from. But
That podcast thing, and I've only in the last 6 months, maybe a year, recognized the power of, and not doing this, but Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro,
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, of course, who's the godfather, apparently. So
He's the man.
only Joe Rogan can make us all sit around and listen to somebody for 3 hours or something, talk. But it's a coming substantial form of news that is that most people my age have no clue about, and I think that's going to continue to grow. Kenzie, what do you do?
I listen to a lot of podcasts, but at the end of the day, when there's time that I'm dealing with, I think Twitter by far is the most.
Now, do you get in Twitter wars? And do you guys get
no? I work for
Definitely.
somebody who I do not want to even enter into the Twitter sphere and have anything that I say backfire. But I do a lot of the retweet button. I'm like, I like that. Click that button. But I try.
Do you have
and
the
stay
weasel
away from
words
some
on
of
your
that.
profile that say, just because I retweeted something doesn't mean I really agree with it?
I'm
just
not
for your
that
consideration.
Cool. Yeah, opinion my own, right? Not anybody that employs me. No, I don't. I'm not that cool.
Yeah, it's I tend to treat it like Facebook. So I'll put something that barely fits in the space, and then I leave it, and then I come back like a day later. It's like 15 people have said you suck, and why do you suck so bad? And I hear you suck, and you've always sucked, and so it's hard to respond to that.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of following the right. Like for me, it's a matter of following the right people, right? That's kind of where that's what I use Twitter for more than anything, is to follow people who I know are either in DC or at the Capitol and kind of know more what's going on than I would, right? More eyewitness sources that would give me information when I can go about my day and do my thing without having to be fully plugged into anything else.
Well, speaking of people that are sources of information, I'm assuming that you're all checking the actors who played various parts on TV and in movies to tell you really what's important in life. I noticed that Captain America is apparently a liberal that doesn't like Kavanaugh.
Or America.
Or America, which is weird. Surprise! A twisted plot there. And then we have the Hulk, of course, Ruffalo, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He doesn't like. And then Scarlet, of course, has been a good liberal for a long time.
Taking the Avengers from us.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't want to go see part 2.
Yeah.
I don't care what
I'm
Thanos
seeing part
said.
two.
I'm going to go do this.
Thanos.
Yes,
I'm
we're going to do this. But I'm kind of irritated about it. So. But it has room. I don't want to see Matt Damon anymore. I'm just kind of done with him.
Or even Melissa Milano, who was in the hearing. She was literally right behind, holding a sign. And I'm like, what do you do? You don't belong here. And so she's been on the news recently as an activist and an actress. And every time she speaks, we were talking about this recently. I'm like, she couldn't even get her words out. And I was like, isn't your job to memorize lines?
Right.
And she couldn't even get she's like, oh, and I was like, could you even be an activist well? And it's just like, this is not your job. We pay you a lot of money to do nothing, so go do nothing, right? It's frustrating.
I recall when Sissy Spacek, I think it was Sissy Spacek, that testified about farm subsidies several years ago, and I was going, why is an actress who played Loretta Lynn, and that's her bona fides, is why she's going to testify to Congress on some matter? These people are entertainers, and let them entertain us, but I don't care what football players think. I don't care what, these are people who play children's games wearing tights in front of other people. And great, you go do that, but I really don't need you to tell me how to think. But still, it makes a difference, right?
Well, even today, so speaking of Kavanaugh hearings, there's the comedian Amy, I forget the last name,
Schumer.
and Emily, other last name that's hard. They were supposedly arrested while protesting, and these are, they're posting on Twitter and Instagram with, the pose, like, oh, we're doing this, and you should look at me, I'm protesting. And if you actually see the videos that people have taken of them, they are asking the cops to be arrested. And they have
Will you
protection.
arrest us, please?
Yeah, it is. You just look at it there. It is exactly that. And they escort it out, and they're dancing and bobbing their heads and having a good time. And this is just absurd.
I wonder sometimes, like when you have these big marches, if the dudes that are showing up are just showing up because, hey, there's going to be a lot of gals there. I don't know. This will be where the action is, and so it's just a social gathering. But we've done that before too, so it's okay. Well, thank you, Sarah, Noah, Mackenzie, and Solomon, for joining us today. I appreciate your time. Go forth and conquer, win big votes, and we'll see you next time on White Hat Law.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and we want to thank you for listening to the White Hat Law Show here with Warren Norrid. To find out more about Warren, check him out at norridlaw.com. See you next time.